Hello, I'm Tara Brady and welcome to the 5th East Asia Film Festival Ireland 2021. And thank you for joining us for this very special conversation with director Julien Faraut, whose Witches of the Orient premieres as part of this year's festival. Welcome, Julien. I know that you started out in the archive section of the Sports Research Centre. So tell me a little bit about the work that you used to do there.
Yeah, I'm in charge of a film library. It's a small film collection owned by the French Sports Institute. It's called INSEP, INSEP. It's based in Paris. It's a very old institution that has its roots back in the 19th century. It used to be a place for soldiers and officers, and how they have to learn and teach how to train and to perform in a better condition, physical conditioning. And just after the first World War, this institution start to work with sportsmen and women for the preparation of the Olympic Games. The first Olympic preparation start just before the Games of 1920. So we have this older tradition of teaching, and so the Cinematheque, this film library, were used for instructional and technical aspects of the training in sports. So this is a very it's a real singularity in France. You can't find these films elsewhere, and we are part of the FIAF, the International Film Federation, and because our collection is quite unique. So this is my first task to work on the preservation of this collection and access to this collection. But I used to say that I'm also kind of a fox in the hen house, because all this footage is around in the surroundings. So I have also this duty to enrich the symbolic and the artistic value of this footage. So I started to make films with the materials preserved at the French Sport Institute, and that's why all my films start with this goal to value the footage preserved at INSEP.
And I'm curious because of some of your earlier films, and also because it's quite voguish, I suppose, in sports documentaries, as we've seen with Asif Kapadia's Senna, for example, or his Maradona film. Were you tempted with Witches of the Orient at any point to make it entirely from archive footage?
Yeah, my previous film were made only footage editing work. And here, for the first time, footage are not the main materials, even if it's very important. But yeah, because this time it was a need for me. For the first time, footage and archives and written archives were not enough for me. Were not enough meaningful, and I need to get the testimony of the players. And this is well, I can talk about it for a long time, because yeah, I really feel that when you have to make a film, there is no recipe and that you can do every time, and each time you have to find and rethink of the subject, of the materials you have, which is available. And these times when I just discovered the story of the witches, I was really frustrated and upset by by the articles written by journalists or academics. And I found that there is a lack of testimony, and the players were not, they didn't have the opportunity to talk themselves about themselves. So that's why I really feel this emergency to meet them and to give them the opportunity to tell their story by themselves.
Mhm, mhm. And talk to me about about tracking them down. How difficult was that? Was it easy gaining their trust and getting them to open up on camera?
Well, no, it was quite difficult because I really started from scratch. I have no link with them, so we work hard at it. We have a link with the Japanese Volleyball Association, so it took us almost 1 year to have the first contact, and one by one we try to get closer to the first player, and then this first player talk with the others, and so it was a long journey. And I have to face two main difficulties, two main issues. The first big issue is of course the generation gap, because I'm 42 and the youngest player is 74. And the second issue was, of course, the cultural and linguistic, the language gap, because I don't know a word of Japanese. So my first um, thought was I have to solve these two main issues, and I found a secret weapon. I have someone that can be very helpful in this case, and her name is Catherine Cadou, and she's quite famous in France to be one of the best translator for Japanese film, and especially in the 80s, Catherine used as a translator in Cannes, and for every Japanese cinematographer and directors and any Japanese crew that came to France. So Catherine is also 74, so she knew she used to live in Japan even in the 60s. So she was very aware of the customs, of the cultural habits, and so she was very helpful to get this familiarity and this trust between us and the players. So that's thanks to her we succeed in contacting them. So the first I process in two different times. I choose to meet them first, and we came to Japan with only a microphone because they have to welcome us at home, and this is a very private place, and it's not easy to welcome a stranger, a French director that they don't know uh, by name, they don't know at all. So yeah, we decided to bring us only a microphone, and we just have a discussion and kind of interview. I met 4 players, and we have a long interview in depth for 3 or 4 hours at each player's home. And so we came back in Japan 6 months later. I work on the audio recordings, so I know that what materials I can use in my film as a voiceover, and we choose to for the place of the shooting. We just discuss with the players. I ask them where they would like to be shot, to be filmed. So my first yeah my first wish, a desire, was to just to ask them their preference, what they want, and we also try to match the excerpt from their audio recordings with the location of the shooting. So we can figure out how it works when, for instance, I offer the memory game to Tanida-san because we talk about the fact that she played lots of games with her two granddaughters. So I thought it was funny to make them play a memory game while I was asking her to remind from a past for past events, and so she was playing two memory games at one time. So uh, one of the player remind the routine of the training while she's actually training herself in Mama-san training session. So that's why the whole process of the encounter and in the future editing of the film.
And tell me about the wonderful animated footage we see, which I believe dates to 69-70, the animated series. First of all, as someone who works in an archive, you must have been delighted to happen across it. But also, I think it's a really wonderful way of conveying just how huge the cultural impact they had in Japan was.
Yeah, so a dozen years ago, when a retired French volleyball trainer came to me with a 60mm reel in hand, and so we watched the film. So I watched for the first time. It was a black and white Japanese film about international volleyball, and it includes some excerpt of the witches training session, and so I was really impressed and stunned by what I saw, by the intensity of their training session. But it also rang a bell immediately. It reminded me of the Japanese anime I used to watch when I was a kid in France. As you know, in the 80s, we Europeans discovered Japanese anime. It was broadcasted in France in 1987, the first anime on volleyball. The original title was Attacker You in Japan, but in France it was untitled in a very French way, Jeanne et Serge, the two protagonists, Jeanne and Serge. And I know in every, I don't know if it was broadcast in Ireland, but I knew that it was in Italy and in Spain. And so, well, when I watched the footage, the real training, I was stunned because it was very, very much alike. The camera angles, the frame, the composition of the frame was very, very similar. So I came back to the anime because I have only an old memory of it, and I just realized that it was really linked. So everybody knows about this anime, almost in France, but no one knows that it was actually inspired by a true story by the witches. So my desire was to work on the similarity because visually it was very, very close. And I also discovered that a whole series of anime were inspired by the witches because they were very popular. And it's very interesting also for me in a more general purpose, because I'm very interested in the link between fiction and documentary and reality and legend. And so it was funny to see that we are more familiar with the fiction, the anime, but the true story was hidden in by this all this fiction production. And I think the popularity of the witches were also um, take advantage of this anime. So it's the two just yeah. I'm sorry, I'm not very clear here, but I really like the confusion, the how it just interweave, and we don't know where is the legend, where is the truth, and that's why I play with the nicknames because, for instance, so I don't use the anime I knew in the 80s because it was I think very much was a weaker production than the very first one I use, which is Attack Number One, which is the very first anime, and I thought it was really wonderful the way it was animated, the color and everything. And there were many to the reality. For instance, in Attack You, the trainer is called Diamond,
Yeah.
and Daimatsu was nicknamed by the Westerners press the demon coach. So demon and diamond was very much alike, and so there were many wink in this in many ways, and so I really want to work with this material, and as also as not as a fiction in a. I don't use it as an illustration, as a representation, but as a real footage. That's why I did the anime with the real footage, and I don't make a difference between animated and filmed and real shooting sequence.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned the trainer, because when I was reading up on the story, you get this idea that he's constantly mentioned in relation to the fact that he was with the Imperial Army, and so there's always this kind of evocation of well, I suppose it plays into like really classical sort of orientalizing ideas that we get from the West.
Yeah, I really discovered I was very interested by the West, let's say the Westerner point of view on this case. Especially, I was very surprised and interested by two American U.S. Articles written by published by Life magazine and Sports Illustrated. And one of them, the one I quote in the film, was entitled "Driven Beyond Dignity."
Mm-hmm.
So I was very interested by this point of view because Westerners, journalists and academic, they pretended to speak in the name of the women emancipation. They pretend to advocate on behalf of the women dignity and freedom, but they maintain instead women at a certain place and at a certain role, let's say a traditional role in our society. And I think what shocked this journalist and Westerner observer the most was the fact that those women train like men.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And in France in the 60s, women could do almost everything. They could work, but only if it's really necessary for the family. They could drink alcohol, but not too much. Women they could practice some sports, but sparingly,
Yeah.
with moderation. And for the first time, they watch women that train with no moderation at all and with excess. So I think that's why it was unbearable for these Westerners men to see how far women were not supposed to break their nails. They're not supposed to get bruised. They're not expected to get too much muscles, to not to be too much musculars. So I was this contradiction and this complexity really pushed me to go further into with this project. I really want, because from the start, I saw the witches as a true pioneers of high-level sports athletes. They were high-level sports athletes for the first time. Women just train very hard, and it was something very new for us in the 60s, because we were not used to see women as high-level athletes.
I'm curious because your films seem to me to have more in common with, I'm not too sure what the French term is, but we call them, I suppose, psychogeography films of people like Patrick Keeler or Chris Marker, and they seem to have as much in common with those kinds of films as they would with conventional sports documentaries. So I'm wondering what kind of conversations and organizing principles you have in mind when you sit down with your editor, Andrei Bogdanov.
Yeah, you mentioned Chris Marker, and he played a great role to me. Yeah, he was one of them. When I was a teenager, I was a cinephile, and so I went to. We have this chance in Paris to have many independent theaters. So I watched many movies, mainly American films, and the classic one. I watched all the Lubitsch, the Wilder, the Howard Hawks, and so on. But I really don't have any wish or desire to make films myself, and probably because I thought that it was out of reach for me. My parents were not in the field, so I have in mind that we need to you have to have connection, to have networking connection to to start making films. So yeah, I never thought I could make films myself. But when I was a young academic at the French university, I started to watch documentaries, and especially Chris Marker. And after watching a very specific film, one of his most popular film, Sans Soleil, Sunless, it was quite a revelation. Like I was convinced that I could make myself, I can make my films myself. And it was just like a hidden desire or wish that suddenly occurred to me, because with the archives I can just try to start editing it, and to write a voiceover, and it was very it was easy for me for the first time. I don't have to raise a huge amount of money, and to have to hire a cinematographer. And archives film were very easy, and I can do it. So when I was hired by the French Sport Institute, and start to work with the film collection, I just tried to first my first edition. So I tried it, and I really loved the edition. So I started from more from the editing path rather than the filming path. And so Chris Marker was very important to me, and I really liked his way of his curiosity, and the way he found its own path, its own way to make films. So he's one of my main reference, and also maybe I work as a frustrated viewer when I watch sports documentary. They are all there are two the TV documentary type, and they are focused on the subject itself, and most of those films just forget to make films themselves. They don't think of of the narration, of the form. They're just interested in a subject, in a sports legend or a great team event, and they don't really care about um, the cinematographic form of it. And this is for me a main concern. If you want to make a book, you are concerned about the writing, and you try to use nice and relevant words and sentence. And if you want to make a film, you just have to pay attention to the narration, to the edition, because it's a film, it's not a book, it's not a speech. So I'm very also. I was mentioning earlier in our discussion, Wilder, Billy Wilder. You know, so his films are very, very far from mine, but uh, I always I was very grateful to Billy Wilder when he explained, and in all his films is very respectful to his audience. He always think that the audience is clever, is smart, and I really like that. I don't like the broadcasters or the people that think that the audience is stupid, and that's how I want to work. I want to consider the audience very clever as I am, and not more or less intelligent. So I'm very respectful to my audience.
Mhm. And speaking of audiences, have the women seen the film? Have you got any feedback from them? Did you sit down and watch it with them, for example?
You mentioned the audience, the general audience, or the
No, no,
players themselves?
I mean the witches of the title. Have they seen the film, and what kind of feedback have you got from them?
No, not yet. Unfortunately, we were supposed to screen the film last year
Mhm.
before the pandemic. So now they are very they look forward to watching it very hard, and we try to make them be patient. But no, they're not. They haven't seen it yet,
Mhm.
but they are expected it a lot. We are in contact. Catherine, the translator, they keep in touch with them regularly, and they can't wait anymore. But I'm sure they will be happy to watch it. And I have to mention here a very sad news. One of the protagonists, Tanida, passed away last Christmas. So it's very sad because she was one of the uh, she, she really wait for to watch it. And yeah, I'm very deeply sad that she was not, she didn't have the time to do so. So it will be a very special moment when we screen the film in Japan with the players for the first time.
Mhm.
But we have the first feedback from Japanese people, and I think the first feedbacks are really good, and I'm really glad that the first Japanese people who watched the film appreciated the way I my treatment, the way I, I make the film, because they are very used that they're the Westerners. Let's say I always talk about Westerners. Sorry, it's very general, but uh, we have so many. There are so many misunderstandings between Western and Japan, and especially in France. I can really talk about the French stereotype, the fact that French people have many stereotypes and pre pre-established opinion and very cliche about Japan. And I'm very happy to get this kind feedback from Japanese, because they are happy that the French director is not making a new Western film on Japan.
Well, thank you so much for talking to me, Julien. It's been absolutely fascinating, and the film is fascinating as well. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for your invitation. Thank you for your time and your interest in my work. So my pleasure was all mine, for sure.
And congratulations again on the film.